had this neighbor that taught me how to make pasta, and we have a recipe at Allrecipes that's just about exactly the same. So let's make pasta. It has you start the recipe by making the dough in a bowl. My neighbor, who is from Rome, who taught me the way, said you just start right on the countertop. We're gonna form our own bowl with the flour. Start with 2 cups of flour. This is just regular all-purpose flour. We're going to form a well into the center. I usually just use my measuring cup to do that. You know, this is one of those activities that I love on a lazy Sunday when you've got the time just to become, you know, kind of one with the food. I'm gonna start by cracking my eggs right into the well. Okay, and then you're just gonna whisk them up right there. To my eggs, I'm gonna go in with about a tablespoon of olive oil and a little bit of salt. Okay, once it's a nice uniform mixture, we're going to start gradually working in the flour from the inside out. You can see as it gets thickened, break the wall down and just start incorporating that flour. Come one with your pasta. This step gets a little messy, but for some reason I just feel like you have to just use one hand, not two, because that's what she did. It's gonna look like you have a lot of extra flour, but as you knead, it's going to work its way in because the dough is still really wet in the center. And you're just gonna keep going like this until it's all incorporated into a nice kind of firm yet not sticky dough. Right now you can see a little texture in the dough, and that's not what we want. We want to kind of smooth that out. It's gonna take about 10 minutes, so turn on the music, get you a glass of wine, and pretend you're in Italy. One day. Now you can see it's nice and smooth. Now what we did was we activated a lot of that gluten. So our dough is feeling really tense right now. So at this point, we're gonna let it rest. So I'm gonna let it sit here for about 5 to 10 minutes just to kind of relax a little bit, and then we'll make pasta. Let's talk about the pasta machines. Of course, you don't have to have a machine at all. We can roll the pasta out and cut it ourselves. We'll do a couple of those, but I do kind of recommend the pasta machine. This is the kind I have at home. This is the old school hand crank. But then, you know, everyone has this machine, and so you can buy just the attachments, and then you don't have to do the cranking. So you either get a little more work, or we can plug it into here, and I'll show you how to do that. You just unscrew this little top part, and you plug these right in, and then turn it on, and it does the whole process for you. Having the attachment for your mixer is just gonna go by faster and make the process just a little bit easier. Having the hand crank makes you feel like you're with my old neighbor from Rome. Our dough has relaxed a little bit. I'm actually gonna cut this one portion of dough into 8 pieces. So you wanna flatten it out in order to pass it through our machine. You can just do that with your hands. Just needs to be maybe about 1/4 to 1/8 inch thick before you pass it through. The other thing to remember before we pass it through our pasta machine is to make sure it's really dry. If you feel any kind of damp, you know, like really moist spots in your dough, just kind of give it a little tap into the flour. That way it doesn't stick in the pasta maker. So I've gotten it flattened out to about yay thick. All machines are different, but you want to start it with the widest setting first, and then you go down on your numbers until you get like the thinnest pasta sheet possible without it breaking. So I'm going to start here at an 8. Pass it through, and then I turn the dial to make it a little bit thinner, pass it through again, and then you just repeat that process until it's as thin as possible. To me, it's perfectly thin when you can see through it. You see how you can see kind of my finger shadows back there? That's perfect. Now that you have your sheets, you're ready to make your strands. And before you hand cut your pasta, you want these sheets to kind of dry out for a little bit, maybe like 15, 20 minutes. That way they don't stick together when you go to roll it. So I'm gonna let that dry out for a little bit, and I'll show you how to cut it through the pasta maker. You wanna get into a more kind of workable size. This is pretty long, so I'm gonna cut it in half. And then we put on our other attachments. And you don't have to worry about thickness here because we've already gotten it to our desired thickness. We're just gonna pass it straight through, and this will cut the pasta. We're making pasta. Easy peasy. At this point, there's a couple things you can do. You can hang this on a pole or a laundry drying rack or an official pasta drying rack just to let it dry out a little more before you cook it. Or you can go straight to cooking it. I like to make really loose little nests and let them dry out on the counter for a little bit. If they've dried out a little before you roll it, this process is really easy. Let's keep going. We got a lot of pasta to make. Mamma mia. No machine, no problem. Here is how you can hand cut it. Once you get your sheet nice and flat, you're gonna give it a loose roll and then just cut it with a knife. See? Works just the same. When it comes time to cook your pasta, you're just going to do it the same way you would dried store-bought pasta. You're going to bring a pot of water to a boil, heavily salt it, and then drop your pasta in. The difference is it's going to cook in a lot less time. This only takes a couple minutes. It'll all start to float to the top, but you'll want to give it a lot of stirs because it has a tendency to stick together a little bit more. That's why the drier you can get your fresh pasta, the better. Let's give her a taste. Wow. There is a difference between the homemade and the store-bought. It's the perfect canvas for however you want to sauce it up. And you could spend $20 for this in a restaurant, but why when it costs pennies to make it home? And it's better. It is 1,000% worth it to make homemade pasta dough.
Okay. Dang, how hard is this?
You gotta hydrate before you dehydrate.